I used to laugh at the stories about the janitor. People said he was obsessed with polishing the university's main hall, that he'd stay there every night long after the last lecture, sliding his buffer machine across the floor until it gleamed like glass. I thought it was harmless, until the night I stayed late. It was midterms, and the library had kicked me out at midnight. The quickest way to the dorms was through the main hall. When I pushed open the heavy double doors, the smell hit me first. Sharp chemicals, thick enough to sting my eyes. The place glowed under the overhead lights, every inch of marble shining wet, as though the floor had been dipped in liquid silver. This was the beginning of the end. The janitor was there, hunched behind his machine, moving slowly up and down. He didn't even look at me, just muttered, "Don't step on it yet." I nodded, hugging the wall. But then I noticed something strange. In the reflection of the hall, I wasn't alone. My mirrored self stood there. Sure, but so did others. Students in backpacks walked past me. A professor I knew strode briskly across, head bent over papers. I spun around. The real hall was empty. Only me, the janitor, and the low hum of his buffer. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Still there, still moving. "You see them, don't you?" the janitor said without looking up. His voice was flat, tired. "That's why I wax it every night. Got to keep it sealed, keep them on their side." I laughed nervously. "What is this?" You won't believe his answer. He finally looked up. His face was grey with exhaustion, eyes ringed with purple shadows. "Listen to me, kid. Never step on the shine before it dries. That's the only rule. That's the only thing keeping you here. I should have left. I should have walked right out. But curiosity got the better of me. I crept closer, watching the floor. The reflections didn't mimic us at all anymore. A door in the mirrored hall swung wide open, even though the real one stayed shut. A group of students sat down in the middle of the floor, chatting and laughing. One of them looked right at me and smiled. A chill swept through me. They can see me. The janitor dropped his buffer handle with a clatter. "Get back. Do not touch it." But I did. Just one step. My sneaker landed on the wet surface with a faint squeak. The world tilted. I stumbled forward, but my reflection didn't stumble with me. It reached out, grabbed my arm, and yanked. The janitor shouted, but his voice was already fading. I fell, not down, but sideways, through the shine, into the hall that wasn't mine. But check this out. The floor here wasn't just glossy. It pulsed like a sheet of water under ice. The air was heavy, muffled. Students crowded around me, their faces almost right, but not quite. Their eyes too dark, their smiles too wide. The janitor's face hovered on the other side of the gleaming floor, staring down at me with a kind of sorrow. He mouthed one last warning I couldn't hear. Then he started his buffer again, sealing the surface above me, locking me in. Now I walk these halls with the rest of his students. We laugh, we smile, we wait, and every night I watch the shine from the other side, hoping someone else breaks the rule. I always thought our office janitor was strange, but harmless. He was quiet, moved like he'd been there forever, and never spoke unless spoken to. The only odd thing was the keys, a massive ring of them, old and tarnished, clinking with every step. They didn't look like normal office keys, more like something you'd see in a castle dungeon. One day I finally asked, "Hey, what are those even for?" He glanced at me with tired eyes and said, almost too softly to hear, "The old sub-basement." Then he walked away. I should have ended it there, but I didn't. None of us had ever seen a sub-basement. Our building barely had a basement at all, just storage and boiler rooms. But after he said it, everyone started noticing. Every night he lingered after hours, keys in hand, always drifting toward the service corridor. One evening, 3 of us, me, Kelly and Mark, decided to follow. Stupid, I know. We stayed late, pretending to finish paperwork. When the lights dimmed and most people left, we slipped behind him, keeping far enough back that the echo of his keys covered our footsteps. He turned down a hall I'd walked 100 times, but this time he stopped at a wall I'd always assumed was just a wall. And then, with one of those rusted keys, he unlocked a door none of us had ever noticed. It swung open with a groan, revealing stairs leading down into darkness. We held our breath as he descended, his voice carried up faintly, a low, steady murmur. Kelly leaned close. Who's he talking to? We crept down far enough to see. This is where things get crazy. At the bottom was a huge, stone-lined chamber. The air was damp, metallic. Against the walls hung rows of pale figures, dozens of them, chained at the wrists, heads bowed, swaying as though rocked by a breeze that didn't exist. The janitor stood in the center, speaking softly, not commands, not prayers, just words, a stream of calm, almost fatherly speech, and with every syllable, the figures stilled, their chains clinking, only when they swayed in unison. Mark whispered, "What on earth?" His voice cracked too loud. The janitor's head snapped up. His eyes met mine. For the first time, I saw fear in his face. Not anger, not surprise, but pure dread. He shook his head slowly, pleading without words. And then it happened. The keyring slipped from his hand. It hit the stone floor with a clang that echoed through the chamber. Instantly, the murmuring stopped. The figures stilled, and then they began to pull at their chains. The janitor scrambled toward us, but his gaze wasn't on Kelly or Mark. It was locked on me. He shoved the ring into my hands, his voice hoarse. "Don't let them hear silence." Before I could react, the nearest figure lunged, chain snapping taut. The others followed, the sound of iron straining filling the chamber. The janitor pushed us back toward the stairs, shouting at me to speak. So I did. Anything. Nonsense. Rambling. My own panic stream of words. And horrifyingly, it worked. The figures slowed, chains rattling less violently as my voice filled the air. By the time we stumbled into the hall above, the janitor was gone. Only the echo of my own words remained. The door slammed shut behind me, locking itself. The keys felt impossibly heavy in my hands. Now I know why he always looked so tired, and I know what will happen if I ever stop talking. High school has its share of ghost stories, but most of them are just bored kids trying to freak each other out. The one about our janitor, though, I wish that had been just another rumor. Everyone called him Mr. Gray, though I don't know if that was even his real name. He never spoke, not to teachers, not to students. He just drifted through the halls at night with his mop and bucket, humming under his breath like a broken machine. The weird thing was the lockers. One week, people started complaining that their stuff kept ending up in the wrong place. A kid would swear he put his shoes in locker 118, but find them in 142. Another would swear her phone was in her jacket pocket, only to find it sealed inside a locker that wasn't even hers. Teachers blamed forgetfulness, pranks, or just plain lying. But it kept happening. I was on the yearbook committee, which meant late nights in the computer lab. That's when I noticed him. Mr. Gray always swept the same hallway, locker row, back and forth, over and over. His mop would slide past the metal doors, and I swear I'd hear a faint creak like hinges moving. But it gets worse. One night, I left my backpack leaning against my own locker while I went to grab something from the lab. When I came back, it was gone. I found it the next morning, inside a locker that hadn't been used in years. No one had the combination. That's when I convinced the AV club to help me check the security cameras. We pulled the footage, and what we saw, Mr. Gray never touched a single locker. He never reached out, never fiddled with a combination. He just swept. But each time his mop slid past, the lockers opened on their own. Small things disappeared. Shoes, hats, bags, like the lockers were hungry, and his sweeping was feeding them. And then we saw something terrifying. On the most recent tape, after his mop passed, a locker door opened wide enough to reveal not darkness, but depth. Too much depth. An endless black space, like a tunnel without walls, and a hand, small, trembling, was dragged inside. It was Rachel Torres. She hadn't shown up for homeroom the next day. We froze the video. There was no mistake. The locker closed again, silent, clean, and empty. That night, we stayed behind in the lab with the cameras still rolling. At exactly midnight, Mr. Gray appeared. His bucket wheels squeaked as he moved down the hall. The mop glided, water dripping, and the lockers shuddered as though breathing. Now pay attention to this. One by one, doors cracked open. A jacket was pulled in. A textbook vanished. Then, as if sensing us, he stopped. Slowly, Mr. Gray turned and looked directly into the lens. For the first time, his lips moved. Not humming, words. I couldn't hear them, but his mouth formed a single command: "Come here." Then he turned back to the lockers, and one of them stretched wider than the rest. It wasn't just a door anymore. It was a passage. Swallowing the light around it, Mr. Gray stepped inside, mop in hand, without hesitation. The locker slammed shut behind him. We bolted to the hallway seconds later, but all we found was a spotless floor and lockers gleaming like they'd never been touched. Rachel's locker? Scrubbed empty, like she had never existed. Thanks for listening. Now close your eyes and sleep.